Oi, you. It's time for another episode of Dorothy and the Dealer. Let's tune into the conversation.
Hello.
So, we have on the radio today...
On radio?
Radio Dorothy and the Dealer, my arch nemesis, the sister that I never had, that I was due to have and dislike a lot.
And didn't want?
And didn't want.
No, she's my sister from another mister. Darling Rennee, how are you?
Renner.
I'm good. I am good. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Do you feel special?
Do you feel special?
Yes, I do. I feel so special.
You should feel special.
I know this is going to be a lot of mudslinging in this podcast, I can tell.
Probably.
No, there's not.
I don't even need to ask you now, because you know how we start our podcast with a song, right? I don't even need to ask you what song you're going to sing, and I think you should just start.
Yeah.
What? I have to sing a song?
Yeah. Come on.
I'm not singing a song. You know I can't sing.
You're a dancer, not a singer. But
I am a dancer.
I'm gonna
Sing it.
I'm going to predict
Sing
which
it.
song you want to sing.
Sing the song. You know the song. It's the most annoying song. Yeah, it's the song that you will wake up. I will come out of the room about to go into a seminar at 6 o'clock in the morning, like exhausted from 15, 16 hours the day before. And I'll walk into the kitchen and she will walk up and just plant a song in my mind.
Like this one, ready?
You know the song that you just can't get out of your head? You know, you just, and then in my, like 12 o'clock that day, I'm standing in the toilet and I'm singing this song in my head. And I'm thinking, why am I singing that song? And because Renner seeded it in my mind.
There's so many of those songs that I do that with.
You do that. She does that with Ice Baby.
I do.
But her go-to song has got to be.
What's your go-to song?
You know that there is pain, but you hold
on for one more day
and you break free from the chain.
You know, and now that's in my mind, and like it's just all the way through this podcast, it's going to be. And who sang it? Who sang that?
Wilson Phillips. Seriously,
you should know that.
You should know
You're
that
so
by
caught
now.
in the 80s.
She is a bit caught in
You
the 80s.
are literally 1984. I shouldn't call you Renee. I should call you just 1984. Anyway,
1988 was better, I think. But yeah, go on.
Do you reckon? Was it Wilson Phillips,
Yeah.
1988?
I don't know. It could have been.
Oh.
No, it might have been earlier. I think it might have been 1988. Anyway.
We could literally sit there and you guys could argue about this song for like
Who
a week.
cares?
So
I don't care about that song.
let's carry on.
It's not in my mind.
Okay.
Hold on for one more day.
It's not in my mind.
Renners, we wanted just to chat with you today.
Was it? It's not an 80s song. 1990. Shit.
Oh.
There you go. From one of the
Not
monkeys.
even 1980s anymore.
One of the monkeys. Thanks, monkey.
1990 was a good year.
There you go.
Okay.
So we wanted to chat with you today, Rennee, because a lot of people that work with us know who you are because you work with us very closely too. And we wanted just to share a little bit about your background and your story and what happened with you when you first came along, when you met us and before you met us, and just a little bit of your story.
Because you're not a person to stick around in things for a long time, are you really?
How did you know that?
And you've stuck around with us for a long time.
Yeah,
You know, it's kind of creepy.
I have a long time.
Kind of creepy.
I know. It's it's 12 years.
It's
12 years now.
There you go.
Really? Wow.
That has been a long time.
Wow. How old is your
You just don't
daughter?
like it because she pokes you in your...
Yeah, she beats
gives
me
you
up.
the-
How old is your eldest daughter now?
She is 11. She's 12 in October.
Should we talk about how she scratched my daughter's face when we were in Bali?
We can. She's feisty.
She is fussy.
I taught her well.
So talk to us. Tell us, do you want to start and share, part of what brought you to us in the first place, Renners?
Yeah, so I think...
Hold on, just so you know, this better be interesting, mate, or we will not be putting this podcast out, okay?
Oh, God. Okay.
No pressure.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
So it would have been 12 years ago. I think it was 12 years ago in February that I first did relationships anew. And at that point in my life, I had, everything was kind of going along quite nicely. We had a nice house, we had a nice car. Everything just seemed to be okay, aside from the fact that what I really wanted was to be a mum. And we had been trying for nearly 3 years at that point to have a baby. And every month that it didn't happen, I just felt like I was slipping further and further and further into this. I didn't call it depression at the time, but in retrospect, I think it was. I just felt like I couldn't see what my life would be like without having children. And so everything was kind of wrapped up in that. And yes, my sister said to me, I think you should go and do this course. And so I came along to Relationships in You.
What was the struggle? Was there any physical stuff going on? Did you get any reports from the doctors or anything, or is it just?
No, we hadn't got to that point yet. That was kind of that was going to be the next stage. And then my sister had spoken to Ange, and Ange was like, "We've helped a lot of people. We might be able to help her."
Yeah.
Ange
Thank
was
you,
seminaring
Thank you, Ange. Yeah, Ange was seminaring my sister.
Right.
And my sister went and did the seminar, and she said to me afterwards, she said, "I really think it would help." And so I came and did Relationships in You at that point. But at that point, there hadn't been any physical issues as such, but we hadn't sort of gone down the route of testing and, sort of the IVF considerations or anything at that point. It was just still trying to just make it work naturally, I guess. Yep. But yeah, it was me sort of slipping further and further into this depression.
Did Mike do it long after?
He was just after, I think.
Yeah, so I did it in Feb, and I think he may have done it. Was it Feb? No, I did it in November and he did it in Feb.
Right.
So, yeah, I did it first, and then I said to him, I really think that you should do this course. Right. Yeah. In fact, you must do this course. No, I didn't really. And then he did it, and everything changed that weekend.
So tell me what happened, because the big transformation, I know a big transformation happened after Mike came through, but tell me what happened with you and what your realisations were and what you realised had been happening before.
I think for my whole life I'd put so much pressure on myself, and I felt judged, and I was judging myself a lot. But I realised in that weekend that I realised how loved I was, and I think I'd spent my whole life trying to please everybody and feeling like I needed to be better than what I was. And in that whole weekend, I got to see that I was okay as I was, and that life didn't have to look the way that it needed to look, that there was different ways that you could look at your life, and there were blessings in everything. And I think that was the turning point for me, just being able to see the blessings in things that I had never been able to see before. It was always, I'd only ever seen one side. And I think in that moment, getting to see both sides and seeing that whether I had children or I didn't have children, I knew that I was going to be okay. And I just, I'm going to get emotional.
That's a real wow moment, isn't it? Because I think, I think one of the biggest things that and you as well, Renee, we're a long time now working with people that go through this. Yeah. Which is they want to have the love for the child. Yeah. But it seems like life won't allow them to have the child until they have the love for themselves. Yeah, 100%. And something clicks, very deep and spiritually, and I think cellularly for people when they get that all life wants you to do is to love whether you have the child or not. And then it seems to be at that moment that it pops for people, and then, physiologically they let go, and then it's kind of like you let go, but you let God. Do you know what I mean? It's a strange thing that seems to occur. I think, letting go of trying to control the outcome. And I think for me that weekend, it was just, I literally felt free for the first time, I think, ever. And walking out and realising that I had these preconceived ideas of what I thought my life needed to be. And in that moment I let go of that and went, it will just be what it will be. And I know that I'll be okay no matter what. And I felt free for the first time in my life. And it was just a very, very profound weekend for me. Did you laugh? I did. A lot.
So what happened?
Did I cry? Yes.
So what happened then after that then, in the next stage in your journey?
So after that, I came home and I spoke to my husband, and he'd had an incident happen to him when he was a child, and he was molested by a random person in a park when he was a kid. Right. And he was carrying a lot of guilt and a lot of fear around all of that. So I talked him into doing this seminar, as much as he was very resistant and didn't want to do it. Yeah. So he came along to the seminar, and I remember him coming home one of the nights, and he just was a completely different person. He'd let go of some of the stuff that he was carrying, and he realised that it wasn't him. It wasn't a reflection of who he was, and he could let that go. And it was just, he had created a story around all of that. And I think, Mitch, you said to him when you were working with him, I think you said, you can let your wife get pregnant now, you're going to be a good dad. And literally that weekend I got pregnant.
Wow.
Which is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about doing the work with you guys, because I just know what it changed for us. Like, I look at those kids and I think, wow, like, imagine if we hadn't have had that opportunity, and imagine how different life would be. And it would be fine, but I just look at how much love we get and we can give to them and from them. It blows me away. So I'm so passionate about being able to help other people do that too, and I love that I get to do that with you guys.
So you have to make me cry there.
I know. I've just got goosebumps everywhere.
Is this a cry-off? Is that what this is?
Oh, she'll beat you at that, I tell you what.
I will always beat you at that. You know that.
So can we talk then about when the baby turned up? Was it all like cupcakes and rainbows and
all this love and
everything you dreamed of?
So that was a very interesting journey for me. So I think, again, because I had wanted something so badly, and as much as I'd let that go a little bit, I hadn't probably let it go enough, because I had a preconceived idea about what motherhood was going to be and the sort of mother I was going to be, what the child was going to be like. It was all going to be amazing, and I was just going to rock it. Anyway, and being a control freak as well, like, not when a baby turns up, all of a sudden you're completely out of control and you have this new thing, and you don't know, you feel like you're not doing a very good job at it. And I don't cope well when I feel like I'm not doing a good job. So she turned up and she had lots of colic and I couldn't breastfeed, and it was just sort of one thing after the other. And I really struggled. So probably for the first 2 to 3 months, I really struggled with it. And it was all because of the pressure I was putting on myself and the preconceived ideas of the mother that I thought I needed to be.
At the same time, your mum was away as well, wasn't she, helping your sister, because your sister was pregnant over the other side of the country.
Yeah, so she had my nephew 2 weeks after I had. So they were the two sort of, two newborns, and I just really struggled. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't like being vulnerable. So I had to learn how to be vulnerable, which was an interesting part of the journey for me.
I think when somebody has high expectations of a child before they're born, and then. That has to come crashing down at some point,
But I think also, part of being a mother is you have to be able to handle the heaven and the hell of it, because it's heaven and hell.
But postnatal depression is when you have high expectations of a child before they're born, and you think you're going to be all those things, and then they're there to show you that at the end of the day, you don't have to be anything other than who you are,
And they're also not there to fill a void, so they're not gonna just arrive and everything's gonna be it's gonna make you feel magically whole.
Yes,
that's not part of the process. And I think a lot of people go, well, when I get married, it'll be okay, and when I have children, it'll be okay, and when I get to this point, I'll feel okay about myself. But the reality is that they're not there for that. And I think that was a lesson that I had to learn, because I thought that was part of the process, and I needed that to make me feel whole and make me feel everything, but it didn't. All it did was open up all of the areas that I needed to work on, which has been the process for the last 11 years.
and that's perfect. I know you and I have had many conversations about, over the different times about the things that your kids are bringing up for you, and how important it is that you stop. If I remember one time you were saying, she's just not listening to me. She's not listening to me, and I'm like, darling, where are you not listening to her? Like you're wanting her to be one way, but you just don't want to be that for yourself or be that for her. And our kids really highlight to us the things that we haven't we haven't dealt with or learnt or understood, or and they're our greatest teachers, as much as it can be difficult to acknowledge at times, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's very interesting, some of the things that will come up for me through the kids, things like friendships at school and feeling left out and all of that stuff. It's very interesting when it does come up for them, because I know exactly how I felt in at certain times because of that. So you're revisiting a lot of that. And I think, parents obviously get really, they're so concerned about the kids being part of the bigger picture and having lots of friends, and that's all their own stuff that they're carrying. And you worry because your kid's having lunch by themselves, but it's about looking at it differently, because they're actually reading a book and they're enjoying themselves, and it's okay. Like Austin will say to me, I actually prefer to hang out by myself sometimes. I'm like, that's me.
I think that's another thing though, sometimes people think, oh, you've done some work on yourself and, shouldn't life be smooth sailing after that? And the truth about it is that, no, we're always learning about things. We're always working on ourselves. And that first bit of work that you did with us, that anybody does with us, is really shift and have an experience of a shift of that innermost dominant thought, where you just awaken to yourself. But once that's happened, there's lots of other awakenings that happen along the way. And I think what happens is we just become more and more aware of different things we can work on. And I think when as a parent you can have that experience of love for yourself the way that you did, I think that every step along the way, you don't see it as a problem. You see it as an opportunity to learn to love yourself more, and you see it as an opportunity to grow in another way, for yourself. And I know we speak a lot about Dr. Shefali Sabari, but she talks a lot about that the kids aren't the easel or the, for which we can paint our own perfect lives. Do you know what I mean? We're not meant to be treating them that way. And when you are consciously aware of the fact that your child is your greatest teacher, you can then go away and work on what you need to work on so that you can be a better example for them. You're not there to mold them or fix them or change them or make them perfect. You're there to understand that they're a reflection of you in some way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So have you loved being a parent?
Oh, 100%. There's times that I have really struggled with it, and then there's other times that I really love it. And I know the times that I'm struggling with it are the times that I'm really struggling with myself. Yeah. But I think being aware of that is, like I said, definitely in the beginning it was hard, especially with my first child. I struggled through that journey. I think as the years have progressed, I've become more aware of the stuff that she's bringing up for me, or my son's bringing up for me, and I think it's been really good for me because I've been able to explain to them what's going on for me. So when I've disciplined them, or I've, got grumpy with them or whatever, which I can do, I can then go back and I can explain exactly what's going on for me at that point, so that they understand where I'm coming from, which has really created a really open and communicative relationship with both of them. They're both very communicative in what's going on for them at school, and then we can talk through those things. And I think that's been the necessary journey. I think I needed to really struggle with that in the beginning to really make me more aware of what I was going through, and being able to communicate that with them and not to be afraid to communicate it with them. I think, being able to be vulnerable with your kids is so important, because I think, in our era, parents hid all of that from you, So being able to tell them I'm struggling at work, but this is the reason why. This is the reason why Mummy's stressed, is because of this, this and this. But, what I'm doing to combat it is this. And then it's like a team effort almost, So, I think that's probably been the greatest thing that I learnt in the beginning, which is helping me now.
So you went on then to become an equilibrator with us.
Oh, that's what I was going to talk about next, actually.
And tell us, why did you do that?
I remember sitting there at the seminar at Relationships and You when I first did it, and I was obviously, it literally blew me away. I remember sitting there and I remember watching you two, and I actually said to myself, if I could do anything in this world, and I said it to my sister as well, if I could do anything in this world, I would do what you do. Yeah. And that then became that was my greatest dream, was to be able to sit there and to be able to hold someone's hand and to be able to share in their journey. Oh, I'm going to get emotional again. To be able to share in their journey and to be able to know that I've made a difference to someone's life. And just watching you guys and knowing the effect that it had on me in that moment, that was my greatest dream, was to be able to do that. And thank you for letting me do that.
I know that there were hurdles along the way, though, right? What because I know Austin was, coming along at that point. And, I remember talking to you about it and saying, Renee, this is like, I can feel, and I can feel when somebody is right to be doing this work, and I remember speaking to you about it, and you were like, and you were putting it off. What was going on with that?
I think I looked at it as it was such a huge responsibility, and I felt like to take someone's life into your hands and to know that they could walk out at the end and maybe not have got what they needed to get. I really struggled with that. So for me, it was just feelings of not being good enough at that point and not trusting myself enough at that point, because I didn't feel like I had learned enough to be able to just go and do it, and I was so afraid of letting someone down.
So what do you think then? I just think about how I'm trying to ask this question, but what do you think then? What's clicked for you to actually get you to go, actually that's not the case when a person walks out of here, it's because it's not, it's like, how do you know? Yeah. Well, what I mean is that, whenever I sit down with someone, I know that whatever they get, it's what they're meant to get.
Yeah.
What do you think clicked and helped you to see that?
Well, I think for me, it was you guys pushing me into it. To be honest,
was it me? I didn't push you.
No, I don't know. No, I think after I did, it was interesting because after I did that, the very first equilibration that I did, I knew that whatever I had done, I had done the best that I could, and I also knew that I had a backup. So I knew that if by chance I couldn't do what I needed to do, I knew that Mills had my back and she could always help, Yeah. But after I did that first one, I just knew. I knew that I could feel things that were, when I'm sitting with someone, I could just feel the things that I needed to feel. And as much as there is a process that we go through, there's a lot of feeling and connection at certain points, and I felt all that. Yeah. So I think from that point, I just decided that I needed to trust myself. And there were still times that I didn't, especially in the first couple, there were still times that I was like, oh shit, excuse my language. I don't know whether I've done enough. But then after that point, I just knew. I felt certain things, and I knew I could see it. And I could feel the energy from the person I was sitting with as to what they had got and how much they needed to get, and if I needed to go further and if I needed to ask different questions. And I just trusted myself at that point.
Because it has to kind of click, doesn't it? There's a point where it just clicks and you realise, even if there's been times when I've been working with people and I've gone, that person needs a bit more, but they need it from a female, or they need it, they need it, I'd have to come out and go, right, I need to understand this a little bit better, and then discuss it with the team and say, okay, let's go back in, let's help them to see it this way. And so it's I think everybody having because that's how we all have each other's backs there. I think everybody having each other's backs in that way to say, okay, because we say to people, if you come in here to this event, you're going to see it. No matter what, you're going to see it. And our commitment is that no matter what happens, you're in there, you're going to get it. We're going to flick the switch, or you're going to flick the switch, and you're going to get overcome this cycle.
I think for me, like hearing you say that, I know that there was a nervousness before you came in, but hearing you say that really goes to show for me, and just reminds me all of the time the quality of people we have working with us, because the fact that everybody cares so much about what the outcome is for our people means everything, and means to me is is more important than anything else, because the caring will mean that you'll do whatever it takes, and whatever it takes means I'll step up and I'll step out of my comfort zone as much as possible if that's what it takes for this person to get it. And sometimes it means admitting that you need to, not work with a person, or make sure that somebody else follows through in another way, or whatever it happens to be. And that for me is very, very important. And I know I felt that from you from early days, and it's still there today, darling.
Yeah. And,
well, I think as well,
I have to say, from all reports of because we speak to all the clients all the time, especially after the event, you're a very, very good equilibrator, Renee. You're an excellent equilibrator.
Everybody loves you.
Well, thanks.
I don't. I'm just saying you're a
but
good
I think as well, having the team that we have, and just being able to be really open and honest about where we know that we've done well and where we know that we could have done better and we need someone else to help. Yeah. I think that the times that, we all sort of swap clients and potentially take them out again. And I think just knowing that, it just allows you to be able to ensure that every single client gets exactly what they need. And sometimes they need a couple of sessions. Sometimes that's what it takes. Yeah. But, just knowing that we can all get them there is perfect.
Isn't it a funny thing though that, we talk about there, what is there? And, the thing is, the only reason we're able to get them there is because we got there. We know what we're hunting for when we sit with a person, that we know that no matter what the story, and like we've seen some crazy stories through the years, guys. Like we've seen some fucking hairy, like people looking at you going, how are you going to get the person to see the blessing in that? But once they see the blessing, we know because of the freedom that we got from getting it, right? Shifting that innermost dominating thought, equilibrating that moment, seeing it for the whole of what it was, stepping into that state of, equanimity, where it's selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness, where you just feel the richness of everything that happened, and knowing that you don't have to lumber it around anymore. You don't have to carry that stuff with you anymore the way you saw it. We know what we're looking for when we're hunting for that with a person, and we can't get them there. They get themselves there, All we can do is facilitate the environment for them to be able to see it,
Yeah. But it's interesting. It's interesting with the clients that we will pick, is that they're always something that you are either currently going through or you need to learn at that point. So it's like every single person that I get up, I'm like, I already know where you're going, where you're going with this. I know how to help you because I know that feeling. I know what that feels like.
I'll share a moment with you guys that happens for me when I'm talking on stage, and when I'm talking to the room in relationships and you. Or somebody is sharing something about their lives and what happened in their lives. And, it can be the tiniest thing that happened, like my mum said this, or my dad did that, or, my uncle said this, or the school teacher did that. And I think sometimes, I've done that. I've done that with my kids. I've done exactly that with my kids, and I sometimes sit back and I think, whoa, But at the end of the day, the fact, I mean, I know how I handle it. I just want to hear how you guys handle that, As a parent, how do you handle that, Renee?
I hear that all the time. And I'm like, I am your parent. Yeah. But I think because I know how I'm feeling. So I know how I'm feeling when I'm behaving that way. So I think for me, getting them to see, it just makes it easier for me to get them to see how their parent was feeling in that moment, because I can relate to that. So I think every time they bring up something or a trait, a characteristic or trait, I go to a time when I was like that in my head, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I can see where the parent was going, and I help them to see that. Yeah. And I think that because I can identify with the characteristic, every single characteristic or trait pretty much, it just allows me to be able to help them get to see the other side, and also to see the benefits to them. And then in that, I can then see the benefits to my kids, because I'm like, okay, I can see the benefits to my kids of me being that way as well.
I find the same thing. I find for me that it's almost like I use what's happening around me as a message to let me know whatever marker I'm hitting, whatever somebody's saying that hits a nerve or hits a oh my God, I just did that last week or something like that. It makes me recognise everybody that's in the room. How I see it is that they're in the room and I'm not worried for them because I know what the outcome is going to be for them. I know what they're going to get as a result of being here and the moment that they're going to realise and recognise. And so it's almost like a reminder to me that it doesn't matter whatever's going on, that I'm okay. That it reminds me to look back and go, these parts of me are things that I've done, things I've experienced, things that I feel at times, but that doesn't make me any less of a person, just like I'm about to show them.
Yeah, and I think that for me, it's kind of like, I think to myself, so if I know the outcome that comes from every event that happens to us, that shapes us, and I know that if something that I've done has created a distortion in one of my kids' perceptions, that I know that distortion will play a role in them getting the overall blessing at some point when they're ready to get that in their lives and realise that, wow, everything that happened was specifically designed to help me to get to to help me to get to this moment of getting it, you know.
And I agree with that, but I take that another step further because it's coming to my consciousness for a reason. And so, and if it's coming to my consciousness, it's for me to recognise that perhaps I need to step up my game in that area. Do you know what I mean? I have to recognise what I'm doing there and the impact that might be having on people. That's not to say that anything that it's not to say it's not perfect for them, like you've just said, Mitch, but I'm just saying it's the next level is then to be able to take responsibility for myself about what's the next step for me, you know, if I'm recognising that in myself, you know. Renee, I suppose before we finish up, if you could say anything, because I know we've talked a lot about parenting and being a parent and not knowing about having kids, not having kids. You and I have discussed this over the years a lot. What would you say to all the parents out there? What would be one thing that you would say to people who are just about to become parents, who are parents, who might be struggling in some way?
I think I would say that they need to just understand that the job that they are doing is perfect, is perfect. Like I think so many parents beat themselves up on a daily basis for not being who they think they need to be. And that's something I struggled with in the beginning. But I think understanding that everything that you do or don't do is perfect for that child. They're going to, obviously the voids create the values and it's going to give them their purpose. And I think to take the pressure off and just enjoy your kids for who they are. Rather than trying to make them something that you think they need to be, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So before we go then, I just want to say from my point of view, Renee, I am so grateful that the little girl inside of you got to see how magnificent she is and that she gets to help all those other little boys and girls. It's an honour and a privilege for me to watch you work with people and to watch you be a mum and to watch you just shine in life. For me, it's one of my greatest gifts is watching you, because I just see how much you've grown and how much you've taken on and how many challenges you've faced and how you've overcome them. And I just I take my hat off to you.
She's trying to make you cry.
No, I'm not
crying.
She's always crying.
I already am.
Renee, it was fantastic hanging out again with you today, buddy. You know how much we love you, and we'll see you on the dance floor, baby.
Before you do that, you should put a song in his head, Renee.
No.
Put a song in his head.
I'm still singing it.
Put a song in his head.
I can't think of one. There you go.
Good.
I speak.
No.
But can I just like to say something to you too?
What?
If I can.
Yes.
If you just shush for a sec. I'd just like to thank you both for being such a huge part of my life and also our family's life, and for not only giving me my children, but also for allowing me to be who I am, and for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. And I will forever love you both for that. Thank you for giving me so many opportunities that you have.
Our pleasure, Paul. Our pleasure.
We love you, Renee.
See you, buddy.
Bye. Bye.
If you found this information inspiring, make sure you subscribe and tune in to the next Dorothy and the Dealer podcast.